Today's video is sponsored by Bucket Zone. I've got the Need for Speed Underground 2 for the PlayStation 2. Hello everybody and welcome to CaiKeys. Today I'm here with Jack, who has kindly brought up this stunning Peugeot 206. So tell us something about it.
It is the genesis, the shipbox of the original shipbox in my motoring career. It has been ragged to and from work quite a bit. Don't tell my mum that. It gave me my first taste of wheel spin. Don't tell my mum that. And it is very fun to keep high up in the revs, because that's the only way you can move anywhere.
And it has the softest rear axle in the world.
Yeah, like limo, like Cadillac soft. It is very pliable.
Fantastic. So let's get it out on the road and let's see whether you should buy one. Probably not.
This one was free, so
whether you should be given one for free?
Yeah.
Probably yes. So this car came with a letter, and the letter reads, I was given the car in November 2019 by a friend who had to give up driving because of ill health. The mileage at the time was 36,000. It's the second car I have been given. Lucky. The first was a Nissan Micra. A friend's daughter was moving to Hong Kong and knew that my car would not pass the next MOT. This has been very reliable, only had one major job done, head gasket. In 2022 we were going to Bovington Tank Feet Fest. And seeing as it was the first long trip for the car drive I have owned, I put it in for a service, only to be told that the head gasket was near blowing. This was the Monday. We got it back Thursday night and drove down Friday morning with no problem. She drives and handles well. Only problem is the position of the window controls, which are in the middle. There we go. First things first.
you said you liked it so much last time.
That goes. I've wanted to drive one of these for a while actually, just because they're one of the cars that when I was a kid I thought was cool for absolutely no reason.
Oh, well, the regular car reviews had a thing like that, didn't they? They really wanted to Mr. Regular.
What was it?
When they came over for a Peugeot.
Oh, was it sort of 206?
Yeah, when they came over.
They went to Britain about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's because it's a fantastic looking car. I think so anyway. But more so than that, I think it's because it came out in that kind of Fast and Furious era, didn't it? There were like lots of max power versions of these that at the time people thought were cool. You look back on them and they look like they've got tumours all over them.
Just the Halford Special.
Yes, it's driven through Halfords backwards.
Yeah, got a PS2 somewhere in there.
Oh no, what you want is a PS2 in the mudguard, like on that episode of Pimp My Ride. Where they had they had like a 7-inch screen in the mudguard or on the fender of one of the cars or something.
That sounds like an awful idea. No, I have not seen that.
Fantastic idea. But no, the real 206, the commuter version, this the 1.1, isn't it? This
the most gutless version.
The most gutless version of the 206 is, unfortunately, I've got to say, fantastic fun, but a little bit less cool than it is in Need for Speed.
Yeah, a tiny bit.
Just a tad.
Yeah.
But people clearly like these cars because the Peugeot 206, I'll have to find the exact production figure, but I think it's somewhere close to about 57 billion of these things have been made. They're still being made in Iran, and there were also like really weird versions of these. So the original Peugeot 206, do you know the year it started production?
Late 90s, 1999, not
there
sure.
You go. And it continued in this country. I've seen these on 08 plates.
Apparently they did come out on 09 plates, and they were manufactured here until 2008.
It's crazy,
which is, it's quite a long longevity.
Crazy, because these must have felt really outdated by about 2008. But it's the same with the Mark 1 Ford KA. They produced that until incredibly late. But I guess it's kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But these being produced till 2008 meant they would have had some overlap with the Peugeot 207.
Yeah, they I think they did a facelift and used some 207 parts.
There was.
And I think the 207 was quite heavily based on the underpinnings of this. I'm not quite sure though. I hope they got rid of this engine, because that would have been very gutless.
It is gutless. 58 brake horsepower, did you say?
According to Wikipedia, which is definitely reliable.
58 brake horsepower. It feels like it. It feels very, very similar to the Yaris. We've had quite a few of these cars recently, these like super mini, small hatchbacks with gutless engines. We've got a 1.1 litre Nissan Micra K11, which I've recently reviewed. Obviously my 1 litre Toyota Yaris, and now this 1 litre Peugeot 206. The Peugeot 206, smaller than I thought. It's pretty comparable size-wise to the Yaris, but it just looks like a slightly bigger car. It looks like Focus class almost if you're not up close to one. It's a bit lower than the Yaris.
Yeah, to be fair, like I got in here from the Citroen. I thought, oh Christ, I'm so high up. But that is probably because the seat on that is extremely low.
Yeah,
so I'm not sure what you're.
With hatchbacks and super minis, they kind of build them a bit squatter, and you sit a little bit more rigid, a little bit more upright. But the actual body lines of this car, I think it's aged very well, but it seems like a little bit lower and wider almost than things like the Yaris, the Micra. Whether it is, I don't know.
God knows, I have to get out a ruler or something. Or
But as I was saying, they are still making these things in Iran, where they absolutely adore Peugeots. But after production of the 206 ended, they started making something called the 206 Plus, which was a 206 wearing the ripped off skin of a Peugeot 207.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen one in person, I went on holiday to Greece a few years ago and there were loads of them. They just look bizarre.
It's like because Renault did that with the Clio, didn't they? The Clio
Yes.
Plus or the Compass or whatever.
Lots of like small hatchbacks, they tend to do it. Interestingly, another one is the Ford Figo.
Oh, that like Ford thing. Or...
No, the Ford Figo is a Ford Fiesta. Essentially, it's a Mark 5 or 6 Ford Fiesta, the one that has the tall rear brake lights that are terrible. Produced at the same time as the next generation, so like the 2008 model.
Yeah.
For like, you know, emerging countries, lower,
like Argentina and South America, like
so
Middle East.
They were produced in India, the Ford Figo. So they sold them in India, South Africa, other countries like that, Brazil probably. So please tell me why I saw one driving around Anglesey the other week. What the hell was it doing over here?
Just some bonkers person. Like,
Absolutely.
what's it? Like,
God
wants a
knows.
slice of home?
It's a long way to import what is objectively a shit car. But anyway, back to shit cars. The Peugeot 206, it has the same thing, same issue I had with the Citroen C5, which I just cannot remember being a problem with the 406, that you kind of have to step onto the pedals. They're so high up.
And this one, the accelerator pedal isn't
The
actually broke.
Well, that's it. See, the accelerator pedal, it's just designed like this, but it feels like I'm climbing stairs while I'm accelerating or braking. And I didn't have that problem with the Peugeot 406, which I had, but I did have it with the C5, and it's weird that I've had that. The 206 and the C5 have very, very, very similar feeling pedal boxes, but I just didn't have it with the 406. It's strange, or maybe I'm just misremembering.
Just curious, do you, because I found out the second I got in here, the pedals were uncomfortably close. Like not designed for people with male appendages. Close. How are you feeling, or how are you finding that? Like,
you know what? I don't know what this says about me, but I'm not actually having any problems.
It's fair, I am quite rotund, as you can see, so that might be why.
I find that it's quite roomy for the driver, I must say. I'm not minding it. This happens with every hatchback. My legs are too close to the pedals. I can either have my arms at a comfortable distance, which they are right now, or my legs at a comfortable distance. There's just an inevitability of having a hatchback and trying to maximise space. You kind of sit on top of the pedals.
Yeah, I'm sure the steering wheel is adjustable, but I don't think it's adjustable for rake. I think it's just up and down.
Here is a... Yeah, that's it. Up and down with like no manoeuvrability at all. You can adjust it about 2 degrees.
Yeah, so
which is
probably not going to solve your problem.
Not fantastic.
Sorry.
But, so you said you've had some mechanical issues with this, most notably the dreaded head gasket
That
failure.
thing too, yeah. Yes, it pops at about 40,000 miles, just before we were about to go on a 200-mile road trip down south.
Now that's Rover K series levels of early head gasket failure, isn't it?
To be fair, it was driven around by a itty-bitty little old lady, and it had very few miles, so...
Very few miles, short journeys.
Yeah, so...
not going to be good for it.
No, I can imagine that might be why water might have mixed with oil. I'm not sure though.
Quite possibly.
But yeah, it was a bit cruel of us, because we had it in the mechanics, but it just got out of the mechanics on Thursday, and that Friday we made it do a 200-mile drive, which is like, it's like doing open heart surgery on a rugby player and sending him out to play for England. Not brilliant, but it survived. It's perfectly fine. So.
This isn't the kind of car which you treat with love and care, is it? This is, I mean, you were giving it for free, weren't you?
Yes, well, my mother was giving it for free, but yeah, although it does hurt my heart to say it, yeah, it's a disposable item. It's one of those cars where it's not going to be saved. It's going to be driven until it's uneconomical, and then it's going to be scrapped and forgotten. This
is a white good. So what I like to do, because I like to make myself feel better about purchasing a Mark 1 Toyota Yaris and losing all semblance of coolness that I had, I like to justify my purchase. I do like to do that, but I also like to justify my purchase by kind of saying, well, if I was going to buy this car, it would have cost this many Yarises.
You can't do that.
I would have bought, this is infinitely cheaper than a Yaris. This is a free car. Therefore, my expectations of it are nil. But that being said, I'm always liking to compare things like this to the Yaris, to the Micra. They're small hatchbacks, I'm going to compare what I've already reviewed. Interior-wise, comfort-wise, this is probably better than the Micra and the Yaris. It's definitely, to me, it feels lower. The driving position feels a bit lower. Feels a little bit sportier, I dare say, with all 58 horsepower.
It is very fun to push on B roads and just keep the revs up, because that is where the power is.
I bet the understeer on this is ridiculous, because the whole car just kind of pivots back whenever you touch the accelerator.
Yeah, it is terrible. But the sportier ones have a different rear end, and they have the exact opposite problem. They oversteer.
Too much oversteer, which is, as I was saying earlier, we were talking about this, really quite surprising for a front-wheel drive car.
For it to have oversteer.
For it to lean towards oversteer quite significantly.
But that's not going to be experienced by this, definitely not.
Oh, above 3,500 RPM, it picks up, doesn't it?
It definitely does.
When you get into that power band, which we're in now.
We're just about to
try to take out
clout into the Porsche. That would be some cost to kill ratio, though, wouldn't it?
Just a bit.
Yeah, 3 to what, like 100 grand minimum.
And that's why you drive cars like this, because who cares if you scratch them? Although you've never scratched this, have you?
Not personally, no. All of the scratches were not of my doing, which no one is going to believe, as this is a car I learned to drive in.
It's a little bit battle scarred.
A little bit.
But it just revs and revs and keeps going, doesn't it?
Yeah. Never actually taken it to a rev limiter, to be honest.
Just over 6,000 RPM the rev limiter sits at, but has that brilliant slow car thing of the fact that you can just hang on to those revs forever and just keep on pushing and nothing happens. It's a car that you can drive at the limit and you look down at the speedometer and you're going 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's it is very fun to rag it around, and you're not even breaking the speed limit half the time.
Exactly.
Any of the time, actually, any of the time.
Why even bother getting a fast car when you can get the 206? But you did say it's fun to take over speed bumps.
Yes.
And there is a speed bump here. It's soft on the descent, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really soft.
I have to give it that.
The front suspension on the Citroen is a bit knackered, so it's quite nice to go over a speed bump but not worry the tiniest bit.
I was impressed. If I had a basket of eggs, hypothetically, on the rear seat, I'm sure that I could drive this over a ploughed field and they would not break.
In the traditional French fashion,
In the traditional French manner.
Oh, Porsches around this place, isn't there?
This is where the posh people live. This
It's not for us Porsche.
This isn't for us. If you saw a Yaris here, it'd get torched out.
Yeah.
Right. Weird problem I've never experienced in another car. I put my foot on the clutch then, and I put it a little bit further forwards than usual, and I could feel the steering column.
Yes, that is again one thing that Mr. Regular of Regular Car Reviews mentioned. Yeah, the steering linkage is a bit exposed.
I have
under the pedal
never
box.
driven a car like that. Ever. You'd think they would have had like some kind of plastic shroud over it or something.
Nope, cheaper. It's just cheaper.
Is that a quirk of it being the right-hand drive version of a French car, which they often so struggle with? Their lazy conversions, or is it just like that?
I know it exists, but I don't know if it exists on the left-hand drive version.
Yeah.
I do not know.
That's just absolutely bizarre. I've never experienced that in a vehicle. That's a hell of a quirk. Not a particularly good one, but a quirk nonetheless. But right, Peugeot's design language back with the 06 series of cars, fantastic. I don't know whether I'm just wrong in the head, but I think they're some of the best looking cars ever made.
I wouldn't go particularly that far, but they are pretty good. They look pretty damn good. The facelift ones of these are better, which this isn't. But that
I would say the opposite is true on the 406. The pre-facelift 406, my God, it's so much better looking than the post-facelift that ruined it. Still a good looking car, but not as good.
So what was it for you? The headlights or something, or what did they ruin?
Yes, they made it look a lot more aggressive, and it didn't
work.
I like that kind of smooth aero look of 90s cars, which the 406 had, and the facelift, they were like, "Ooh, look at me! I've got a very powerful 2-litre HDI engine."
Ooh.
It wasn't. It's still a good-looking car, but they ruined it. Whereas at the Peugeot 206, all the time, it looked quite aggressive anyway from the get-go. But maybe that's why I thought it was a cool car when I was a kid.
It's fair. I don't know why, but people say it looks like a girly car, which I never got.
I have not understood that. I've heard people say that the Peugeot badge is quite a feminine badge, whatever that means. I know that they've recently redone it with like a scary looking lion instead of a lion doing like walk like an Egyptian. But yeah, the scene kid Peugeot logo, people say it looks quite feminine. The Peugeot 206cc, yeah, that's quite a feminine car, but it's a small convertible.
Yeah, all of those sort of cabriolets.
They all are the cabrios. Yeah, they are all quite feminine vehicles. The Colt CZT is probably the least feminine one, but even still, it still looks like a balloon. I don't think the 206 is a feminine looking car. I think that women like these. My mum's friend used to have one and she thought it was fantastic.
Oh, definitely, yeah. They do seem to be called to women more than they do to men.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because you can apparently get this with the 2-litre engine that was in my Citroen.
That must be decent.
Quite a lot of poke for a small little car like this.
Very torquey. Regarding reliability, there's so many different engines in these things and so many different choices. There's some to go for and some to avoid, aren't there?
Yeah.
The 1.1 in this, like you say, you've had head gasket problems, but
that was common with 1.1 and 1.4s.
A pink
apparently.
DS3.
That is
I like
unique.
it.
Definitely.
So yeah, there was a guy who worked at my old workplace who had a 206. It was, I think, a 1.4 diesel, and he swore by it. He said, "This is the most fantastic car. I adore this car. I'm never getting rid of it. It's so reliable." But without fail, once a month, you'd be thinking, "Oh, Bry's running a little bit late," and you just hear like this kind of creaking coming from down road and this swearing, and he'd like rock up covered in sweat, like pushing this Peugeot 206 through the doors, like he likes the car, but
Bit of the old Stockholm syndrome, huh?
yes,
Yeah.
it broke down all the time. He took it down to Cornwall, and it broke down. He took it to work. It broke down. Just not the most reliable thing in the world. We're going to see how this thing performs up here. I'm looking forward to it. It's our little test track. Have we taken you up here in the Citroen? I don't think we have.
Not with me in the car, that's for sure.
No.
But I'm not sure if you came here of your own, on your own.
I probably didn't, because it's not the kind of car that you push.
I know. You said you'd take the Citroen to your brother or the person who had the.
I did bring that to my
Volvo.
brother's, and he had
What
a
did he
quick
think?
look. He thought it was very cool. He liked the suspension that went up and down. He does prefer his Volvo, but
That's fair enough.
if he had maybe a Citroen XM Estate, I should get at some point, because that's got that retro styling, but it's also, an estate, and my brother quite likes an estate.
I would definitely be interested in one of those as well, but those are the kind of cars that you want to garage if you got a good
They're
one.
rocking horse shit in this country,
Yeah, they are.
and also plug-in earths. So if they get wet, you get
not fun.
electric problems.
A French
everywhere.
car? You don't.
What? This
Yeah.
doesn't have any. This seems all right.
No, it doesn't. The only things that don't work are the air conditioning. That's because I was a complete and utter moron and tried to fill it myself, and it pissed out.
They don't work.
Yeah.
Those self-fill
It did
AC
used to work.
things don't work.
It did used to work, but yeah, the self-fill thing didn't work.
They're not
I was
worth
an
it.
idiot.
I always tend to take it to a garage. I've tried it, and they even when they do work, they don't work properly cold or out.
Yeah, I shouldn't have messed around with it.
Yeah, that's it.
To be fair, apparently it's quite rare that this low spec model does have like
Air
electric
conditioning.
windows and air conditioning.
Yeah,
It's a weird option apparently.
LX spec, isn't it?
Yeah, which is one up from the base.
No, I must say the LX spec in my Peugeot 406 was fantastic. I had a sunroof, which is all you ever need, and velour trim, similar to this, but a little bit fancier.
Yeah.
And it was beige, and oh my god, it was the comfiest car in the world. But to be fair, that did have the greatest speaker and amplifier setup. Basically, the guy who bought it was like, I don't need all these fancy gadgets, I don't need parking sensors, electric windows in the back, sod that, I just need the best stereo money can buy. So he had this Kenwood 957RL, fantastic head unit, like proper Kenwood speaker setup. My god, it sounded phenomenal.
Fair enough. This has just got the base setup in. It's a bit tinny if I'm honest.
Yeah, two speakers I'm assuming?
Yeah, there's no dash tweeters or anything.
Yeah.
I got the bass cranked up on this side. I don't know why. That's the first thing I did when I was borrowing the car.
We bottom out every car here, and this is just taking it.
It is quite wafty and wallowy.
It's
although
very
I would
wallowy,
watch
but
the understeer.
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
kind of wondering about that, because these aren't the greatest tyres in the world either, are they?
They're not Michelin Pilot Sports, that's for sure. Plenty of tread, but
Cars like these are grocery getters. They're never really meant to hustle down country roads.
definitely not.
Also, no heel toe with this pedal box, because the accelerator's so high up, you cannot heel toe it.
Fair enough. I know of heel toes existence, but I have no idea how to do it.
Well, this is not a good car to practice in. He was wide, wasn't he?
A little bit. Those 208s might have understeer issues.
They might. I've not reached understeer in this yet, which is surprising, but I don't really want to.
To be fair, there is one bit of tarmac going off of the A5 to Aviston. If you know it, you know it. And don't tell my mum this, but I have maxed
Jack's
out.
mum.
Yeah, I have maxed out on that at about 40 mile an hour in this, and it does say maximum speed limit 20. That's for suggested.
That's just for trucks.
Probably, yeah, it is. Brakes in this aren't.
No, the brakes are terrible.
Yeah, I probably should have warned you before.
I feel like
Sorry.
a man slowly dragging the car back rather than something which is actually stopping it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's.
There's the
needs,
understeer.
I'm not sure if it needs new pads or what.
Probably knew everything.
Yeah.
I'll have to check when we stop, but I'm assuming it's rear drums.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
there again, it being only like 55,000 miles, it might be the original brake.
It could be the original
pads.
brake pads.
It's probably the original everything except for filters.
Yeah.
Definitely not the original oil, obviously, but yeah.
Well, I hope not. If it is, testament to Peugeot's engineering.
Yeah.
I can see why these are popular though, and I can see why they sold so many of them. It's quite a nice car. Gearbox, I do remember this from the Peugeot 406, had quite a long throw.
Yeah.
It's quite a long throw, but you can get used to it quite quickly. You know which gear you're in, there's no vagueness, it's just a very long throw. But it clicks into each gear, you know exactly where. Fifth gear's a little bit.
Yeah, fifth gear's quite long.
Loose.
And loose.
Seems to me to be a Peugeot Citroën thing. I used to have a Peugeot Expert van for about 2 weeks until it caught fire. Genuinely caught fire.
An insurance accident, or we're not saying?
Right, so it was called Keith 2. Keith 1 is a story for another day.
Another fire?
Keith 2, no, that didn't set on fire, but
we're saving it for another day. No.
We are saving it for another day. But so Keith 2 anyway, Peugeot Expert van that I had set on fire, and I bought it for 700 quid. I was like, God, I can't, you know, take 700 quid. I don't want to claim on insurance. It was only a minor fire, so I whacked it up on Auto Trader, and someone decided they wanted to buy it. I was very honest with them. I said, look, it sets on fire, and they said, look, we only need a van for a few weeks. So I managed to drive it over the M62 to Huddersfield. It was pissing it down, and this van just had holes in the floor pan, and like you could feel the wind inside. I'm sure it was raining in the van. Somehow we bought it. So, and then the next year it had the worst MOT fail list I've ever seen in my life.
What, you stalking your old cars, eh?
Yeah, I gave it a look, and my God, it was about 2 pages long. It was like a novel. But, whoops, that's unprofessional. But, yeah, that had a very vague gear shifter to the point where you had to hold the gear stick at the base and like be very quiet, and then you could just about hear it. You could feel it through your hand which gear you were in, because it kind of very lightly clicked in. Some of it was totally wrong with the linkage or something. But yeah, that was fun. That was going to be a camper van. It was not.
Yeah, probably for the best by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it was. I don't know why I bought it. It's a story to tell.
Oh, if you got a story out of it, it was probably worth it.
Exactly. So yeah, I quite rate this. I also like how the talking very boring features now, because what exactly can you say about a small French hatchback that's not a hot hatchback? Padded glove box.
Same shit as the door.
Yeah, like kind of velour almost, though not quite. And Ethan, who's there? Oh no, camera's too hot. How are we doing with your camera, Ethan? Are we still recording?
Heating up on its own as well.
Quickly.
Fun. Shall I hang out a window?
We'll pull over at the pub, wait for everything to cool down. But
yeah, we'll pull over at the pub, it'll be fun.
You did say your favourite feature of this car, in a very boring manner, is the petrol cap.
Well, on some models.
On some models, it has a cool petrol cap.
Yeah. On this
I'll
one,
have to
it does
explain
not,
that.
unfortunately.
Yeah, but okay, yes. This is the calibre of car we're working with. It has an interesting petrol cap.
Fair enough.
It's perfectly circular, and sometimes it doesn't even try to be flush with the actual bodywork, and those are the cool ones.
That's true, but you got like an aluminium, like usually aluminium style.
It's probably plastic.
Yeah, it definitely is. So, I've just dropped Jack and Ethan off at the pub. They're going to enjoy a lovely pint, which they probably need after putting up with me for half an hour. Going to try and not run them over. So I thought I'd give you some of my personal thoughts on the Peugeot 206. Now, I'm in the car on my own. So look, let's be honest, nobody's buying the Peugeot 206 because it's a car that they think is cool. Maybe back when you were a kid in that early Need for Speed era, that Max Power era, but look, we grow up, never meet your heroes. And this is honestly a very competent car. I've heard mostly negative things about the 206. I've heard people say that they're terrible, and admittedly the Peugeot 206 is what you get when an elephant sits on a Hindustan Ambassador. But quite like this little thing, and I don't know if I'm just biased because my 406 was the best car I've ever had, but it's a very competent hatchback. Nothing squeaks in here, nothing rattles, and yes, there's a lot of engine noises you might be able to hear, but I am at about 5,000 RPM. It's a surprisingly competent attempt from Peugeot at making a hatchback, and I can really understand why they've sold so many millions of these things and why they're still producing them. The suspension on this is worn out to hell, but the steering is still tight. Steering feels great, actually. So much better than electric power steering. This feels like proper hydraulic power steering to me. Is it a more pleasant drive than the Toyota Yaris? Look, I've reviewed normal hatchbacks, there's nothing hot about them. I've reviewed 3 hatchbacks up to now, and as it stands, the Toyota Yaris handles the worst by quite a long margin, which really is a disappointment because that's the thing that I drive every day. You can't really have too much fun in that car. It feels a little bit too egg-like, and a little bit too wobbly compared to this. Whereas this feels quite low, feels quite composed, and it genuinely feels confident over these bumps. I know the rear axle is absolutely ruined, but it's so composed over potholes. Feels far more premium than you'd initially think. I really wasn't expecting much. Interesting little fact about that Peugeot 206, which you probably know, those front vents at the bonnet, the speed holes, which I think are pretty neat. Turns out they're not speed holes, they're actually just for the climate control of the vehicle. That engine is absolutely screaming. Sound deadening is a foreign concept from the engine bay in this car. Not being able to rev match on your downshifts in this car really does kill a fair bit of the fun of it, but you're going to be doing contortion if you're going to be hitting that accelerator at the same time you're hitting your... You kind of can, but not very easily. It's very undignified. You might be able to get used to it, but this is the brilliant thing. I feel for other car YouTubers when they're reviewing fast cars, whereas look at CaiKeys, we're just starting out, so we're reviewing monotonous 90s and 2000s I keep saying hot hatchbacks, but there's something very fun about it, and I brought it up ad nauseum, and I do sound like everybody else when I say, oh, slow car fast, but there's some truth to it. And it's the same with, yet again, I don't like saying it, but a manual gearbox, it's fun. You're looking at this for a first car, I rate it. I am genuinely quite pleasantly surprised with this vehicle. I mean, look, they're very simple, they're basic, they're cheapo things. Do check the insurance on these though, because I tend to get temporary insurance for my videos, because unfortunately my policy doesn't have driving with owner's consent, and the temporary insurance for this was a little bit more expensive than the other cars I've driven, even with the Mazda MX-5. Wasn't quite Vauxhall levels of expensive, but just keep an eye on that. If the insurance is too expensive, there's other things you can get which are better cars. But if you're in a similar position that Jack was in, where you are offered one of these for free, or for very, very cheap, I really think it's quite a competent little thing. When everything is working, and I've got to say, mechanically, this one appears to be in pretty fantastic condition. Go for it. As I said, it does feel far more refined than the Micra and the Yaris. It feels a class above. It feels much more like an Almera or a Focus, but this is smaller than a Ford Focus or a Nissan Almera. It's not in the same category, and it was a cheap vehicle. So look, I took the Mazda MX-5 round here on my review when I was having such brilliant fun in the countryside, and look, yeah, whilst that's a far better vehicle than this and is more engaging to drive, this still offers a fair bit of fun. Very, very comfortable, and I must say, the seats in this, fantastic. I haven't brought this up yet, but Peugeot, Citroën tend to be quite comfortable cars, quite wafty. The bolstering in this car is absolutely fantastic. I'm like stuck to my seat. but it's not uncomfortable. They've done some absolute wizardry with the seating in this thing. If only the pedals were slightly... All that needs to be done is that accelerator pedal needs to sit lower. I'm going to sit here for a minute, just because I'm behind traffic. So, someone's going to come out and start shouting at me, aren't they? I know that you can do this with quite a few different cars because the electrics take a draw, but if I tap the window switches, the electric window switches a few times, I can drop the revs from just over 1,000 to near enough 500. I wonder if I did it quickly enough and press enough buttons, I could probably stall the car. Fantastic. My Rover used to do that terribly. You pressed anything, the draw on the engine would be immense. It's much more fun to drive than the Almera as well, which we drove around here, which was very, we're alright I guess. But yeah, this is a car I can genuinely have quite a bit of fun in. Similar to the Micra, chuckable, great fun. Nothing much really seems to happen above 5,000 RPM, but it's fun to work the car all the way to the red line. You keep it in that power band above 3,500, you can have a fair bit of fun. You don't actually go any faster, it just gets a lot louder, and loud equals good. I waited about 3 minutes and I'm already behind the bloody Vauxhall Crossland that passed me when I stopped. Well, it didn't pass me, sorry. It was in front of me. It was about 30 seconds in front of me, and I stopped. And yeah, we're just going about 20 miles an hour now on a 60. It's just a safe 60. Not like a 60 with blind bends. The visibility on this road is absolutely fantastic. This is where I like to drive my cars. The views are stunning here. For the love of God, somebody please hook me up with a City Rover or a Perodua Canary or something genuinely rubbish, because I want to disparage a car and I try and find things that I don't like, but with this there isn't. Ergonomically it's good. It reminds me of the 406, which I miss and I loved, and it's a competent car. They've been making these for years, they're continuing to make them, they're still making them, and I can see why people disparage French cars. I've never understood why, because they are brilliant, generally. We don't talk about the 07 series Peugeots. And it's very easy to park. Alright. Yeah. That's brakes. So there we have it, the Peugeot 206. I've reviewed quite a few hatchbacks recently, and I've got to say, every single hatchback I've reviewed has been a little bit better than my Yaris, which is a bit disappointing. Don't get me wrong, I still like it, but I think that this is the more refined car, and the Nissan Micra, which I reviewed the other day, the K11, is the more fun car. So I don't really know what this has going for it. Anyway, I hope that you liked today's review. Big thanks to Jack for letting me borrow this 206, and I'll see you in the next video.